Hey Keith, how you feeling today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what's new in your world?
Spring. Spring is coming. You can feel it. Days are getting longer and it's getting lighter and it's exciting. Yeah.
Does that affect your work at all as a, tell us a little bit about your work.
So I'm the director of a nonprofit art center in Putney, Vermont. It's in the southeast corner, just north of Brattleboro. It's an old theater. It's an old church that the community converted into a theater, a gallery, a commercial kitchen, and a community space.
Nice.
And I've been there for 2 years. And I got there 5 weeks before COVID reared its ugly head, and so it's been an interesting 2 years.
What's been the most interesting part of the 2 years?
The transition from the South up to New England has been it's been powerful.
Yeah.
Different culture, different community. I went from a city in the South of 1 million people to a town of 2,600 with deep historical roots and pride, and the way that they've done it is, history is valued in New England in a deeper way.
And is the way that they've done it different than the way you'd like to do it?
I'll say this. I'll say that there's a difference between honoring one's past and mothballing one's future. I think that you can't put an emphasis on historic preservation and then in the next question ask why young people are moving away and why your population is declining.
I've heard that too. I was talking to a friend in Connecticut, who's interested in running for office, and younger population leaving. So is there some maybe counterbalance to that of like young people being able to work remotely or rethinking their careers? Have you seen that effect at all? Or
yeah, I think the pandemic has allowed people to do that, and I think families, and we're a good example of families wanting to live in a more wholesome place and have a but I think more importantly, communities need to embrace the 21st century and make space for young people to see themselves reflected in the fabric of society. And so yes, there's opportunities for younger people to stay in rural towns, but if rural America isn't making space and letting those people feel like a sense of acceptance and a sense of like belonging and taking ownership in it, like why would those people want to stay in those communities? So what we're doing at Next Stage is trying to reflect the world that we're living in now. So we're talking about racial, cultural and ethnic diversity, and we're not just thinking about the organization as a performance space, but as a real community center. A community has shared experiences. They have a shared set of history, and if you're not cultivating a shared sense of history, then you don't have a community. You have a bunch of people living geographically close to one another. And organizations like Next Stage have the opportunity to be change agents for these communities.
Nice. Who's an artist you're really excited about these days?
One artist? We just had an artist from New York named Big Yuki, who, I listen to a lot of music and I see a lot of arts. This musician blew me away. Virtuosic, and also he was tasteful, and he had depth and he had range, and it was an interesting performance. But I'm also more really interested in the global conversation of how arts and culture bring us together. So we're bringing a gamelan orchestra, we're bringing a Palestinian cellist from Berklee College of Music, and he merges Western classical and Arabic classical music together.
Wow.
These are the things that get me excited, stuff that falls outside of genre, stuff that's almost by nature it's hard to define.
This is a hard to define question, on outcomes, and we live in an outcome driven world. So I wonder, how do you know if it's working? How do you know if you bring in a gong artist or somebody from another side of the planet, and how do you know if it's do you just know it by looking at your audience? Is it clicks? Is it some other?
It's a hard question because it's like as a father, how do I know that decisions I'm making today are having any resonance? And then, 20, 30 years down the road, your child might say to you, remember that time you took me and we did that thing? And you had no idea in that moment that had any impact whatsoever.
Right.
And so I think a lot of this work that we do sort of done in a black box, right? So we put all the inputs in, and you're not really sure about where the outputs are going to land. And so there's individual conversations I have with people. You can look at click-through rates, and you can look at opens of newsletters, and social media metrics, and you can look at your donors. Are your numbers going up? So I think that there's certain metrics you can outline. But in terms of community impact, I think that's something that takes time. Like we just had a meeting with our board about having board involvement at shows more, and so have them more visible. And so one of my board members said, was it good? Was it a good meeting? And I said, well, let's talk in 6 months. Right? We won't know until we have some more impact stories that we know. So I don't want to shirk off the answer, but that's sort of my non-answer answer.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a combination of things. It's not instant. So I guess the last question I have, Keith, is about civic action. Democracy is very stressed and strained in America and internationally. And so how do you see at the very local level, like doing rural arts, like what's that bigger connection to democracy and civic, life and civic health?
Yeah. I think living in a rural place, it really shines a light that we are the government, that we have the ability to make change very immediately. We just had town meeting day, which in New England, this is something that happens. Schools close, and the entire community comes out for town meeting day, and people like select board members. And one of the things that became really obvious was that there were three people running for a new seat on the select board, and all three of them were less than exciting choices. And people throughout the community felt that way, and those conversations were happening, and yet the people who were really qualified didn't want to go through the headache of engaging in the process of a political seat. And that's sort of where we are, where like it's become such a demonized sort of role, and everybody has an opinion about politics. But how we get people to sort of re-engage into the process that everyone is responsible for the direction of your local government, your state government, your national government. This is where we need to go, and not have political discourse through poking memes on social media. Right.
So if there's one action that people should take today, what would that be?
There's 1,000 things I could probably say, but I would say, your dollar is your vote. This is really a powerful influencer of public opinion. When I used to tell my friend, now organic, everybody eats organic, and you see it at all the grocery stores, but when my friends would say, oh, organic food's expensive, I'm like, cancer is expensive. Right? So like, I think that we need to, sometimes the right choice is not always sometimes the wrong choice is the lazy choice. And so I think we need to sometimes go above and beyond to make those choices that are the right choices, and whether that's politically, economically, socially, environmentally, really like putting our choices through that lens.
Yeah, well said. Well, thanks so much, Keith.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate being here.
All right, take care.